Good afternoon and welcome to Scaling Up with Appian. I'm Tim Kelly. I'm the Chief Customer Officer with Macedon Technologies. I joined about 5 years ago and I have focused on customer experience and strategy.
Yeah, my name is Colin Schoenfelder. I've been with Macedon about 8 years and I'm the Director of Technology there. For the purposes of this presentation, all of our internal app development all rolls up to me.
A little bit about Macedon Technologies. So this week we're actually celebrating our 10th year anniversary. Macedon is solely focused on Appian-centric solutions. With over 140 certified consultants, Macedon Technologies leads the Appian community in experience and strategy. We also lead the community by boasting the highest A scores in the world.
But when we were starting up, we had all of the different business processes that we needed to figure out how we were going to do. But really, things like communication were very lightweight, just turning around and seeing who else was in the office and kind of communicating with them that way. All of our timekeeping was really just about sending emails to the CEO at the end of the week with just like, here's a couple of hours that I worked. All of our staffing also done by us and our CEO, just sort of figuring out from looking around the room who is available to staff this project. Doing all of our performance management was really just done around a lunch table. So how do you think you did this year? All of our compliance was mostly done just in time when we realized that we needed to capture whatever kind of compliance documentation that we needed. Recruiting, also just word of mouth, trying to find candidates from recommendations and then going to a couple of career fairs, but one interview done by our CEO. And then, the expenses, I really apologize to any of the poor financial teams that we had to send those horrible Excel spreadsheets over with just a zip file of all of our different terribly constructed expense receipts. And then finally, payroll. That was also just one person that's going through and doing payroll, all just kind of inside of their head.
So let's talk about scaling up, but specifically, let's talk about scaling up lean. When you're a small company, communication tools, they can be simple. They tend to be primitive, and it tends to happen in the corner of Panera, and you don't need a lot of technology. So as we scaled, we wanted to ensure that we could focus on the right things, right? We wanted to leverage a platform that can automate things that were formerly manual processes. Now keep in mind, simply documenting those processes, that's not going to improve anything. Instead, what we wanted to do was focus on key areas that were bottlenecks for us. That's what's imperative to growth. In the upcoming slides, what we're going to talk about is what were our bottlenecks and how did Appian help us from a small growing company become a mid-sized company. One thing to keep in mind, as you scale, it's important to remember that it's a juggling act, right? As you scale, you don't want to stay static, but you're going to grow in parallel. The important thing is as you scale, that you also maintain your culture.
And fortunately, we are experts in a platform that allows us to do exactly that kind of business process automation. And so we started to put our money where our mouth was, get out of our Google Excel spreadsheets for tracking all of our interviews, and bring all of that work into Appian. But we sort of had the exact same problem that we had dealt with a lot of our clients as well, which is, where do we start? What's the first application that we're going to tackle?
Okay, so bear with me. This is actually one of my favorite kids' stories for those of you with children. This is also a common pattern I've seen in my life. I recently replaced a faucet because the faucet at the house had to be replaced. Well, by replacing the faucet, we decided we had to replace the countertop, which turned into the vanity, the tile, the paint, the toilet, the subfloor, and it turned into a $10,000 project. Now, granted, it all had to be done, but it all started with one thing. Right? In our world, that catalyst for change was recruiting. That was what started. And if we had a recruiting system and a recruiting application, well, then we'd want to onboard. Well, if we onboarded people, then we wanted to track performance management and have employee engagement and tracked by it. With engagement, people have expenses. And with expenses, well, I'm going to want to tie that to my finance system. Well, I want my finance systems to be compliant. Then ultimately, I'm going to execute those projects. And those projects were done through a strong PMO with reporting, risk management, standards, and then ultimately opportunity tracking. Keep in mind, these aren't stovepipes, right? The idea of building these solutions isn't I build a stovepipe one at a time. Rather, these were executed very strategically through a strong set of common records. Candidates, employees, assets, clients. There were no stovepipes.
So Started with recruiting. So going back to the first application, one of the really fun statistics is over the course of the last almost 2 years since we put this into our production system, we've processed almost 19,000 resumes. And that would have been completely impossible if we were doing it the way that we used to do our recruiting process, which would basically be part of one person's job was figuring out from a bunch of different sources what our candidates were going to be, looking at our queue of interviewers and trying to figure out who had time, sending them an email, trying to schedule things, following up on that email when they inevitably didn't respond, trying to keep a couple of different spreadsheets up to date with what the status of all of these things were. But it really made it so that we were, after moving into the Appian platform, all of our processes could be started automatically. So we have interview candidates that can come in from our website, from career fairs, from Indeed.com, and kick off the recruiting process automatically. That goes in, and the different interviewers can be queued up and assigned automatically by the system using metrics like how many interviews have they done already this week? How many do they currently have scheduled? Are they on vacation this week? And the results are that we were able to do all of that processing, up to 19,000 resumes, without having to add any additional overhead. And we have built-in compliance, so we can see different metrics about where we're getting things from. And we can see really accurate reporting that shows here are the places that we're having a lot of success with candidates. Here are the places that we haven't had a lot of success, so that next year we can try and figure out where we need to focus our attention.
One of the things that we do focus on is career fairs. We go to quite a lot of fairs. We realized we could improve the performance at those career fairs. With thousands of resumes we're dealing with every year, it's important to find the absolute best candidates to join our company. Now, if you've never done a career fair before, I'll tell you a few things. Number one, they're exhausting. The line is constant, and you never get to eat. So these are brutal events. But what you want to do is focus on the people that you want to be part of it, right? You have this wide swath of people, everybody who studied Middle Earth science for some reason and can't find a job, to the candidate at the far back of the room that you absolutely want to engage with. So what we did was, leveraging and building upon that, we use Appian Mobile. So to the 20 sites that we go to every year, we use Appian Mobile as the single most important piece that makes us effective. So what this allows us to do is actually screen out 85% of the people before we even see them. And so what that allows us is that person that's at the far back of the room, well, now we can actually focus and spend time with them.
And one of the big things that we are doing by the fact that we are developing all of these internally is that we're following our own standards that we would use on all of our projects. We're constantly reevaluating all of our priorities as we're going forward. And one of the big pieces of feedback that we kept getting from our consultants is that they wanted to be more engaged with their career growth. And so we started to automate and kind of changed and built a new process out for how we were going to do our performance management. So not only do we have all of our annual reviews in the system, and kind of annual surveys to get feedback that way, but reviews with the daily manager or with the manager that would happen every month. And that way, we're capturing continuous feedback. What are the strengths of this person? What are the places that they are looking to grow? Which makes it also, when we have a project shift, somebody is going from one to another and they haven't worked with that particular lead before, that lead can look at their record, see, all right, here's all the places that they have strengths and I can deploy them on this project. Here's all the places that they're trying to grow. And we can have a much seamless transition from project to project.
So now we have these people and they're trained and they're deployed. Before Appian, our expense reports were, took quite a long time. I recall in my early days having a stack of paper with tape receipts that I'd scan. I'd send it to the finance team, and it was a complete manual process. What happened is that doesn't scale, right? We only had 25 or 30 people at the time. We have 140 people right now. So what's important is that as we scaled, that we had the tools in place that could be used to automate. Appian is that tool. We fixed the glitch, right? With the glitch, all of our expenses are done online. It's real time, it's auditable, and it's standardized.
And this is another perfect example. You were talking earlier about the mobile features of Appian, enabling us a lot. This is something that we use all the time. So even especially at a conference like this, where we're going and taking a bunch of different receipts for, the cab ride that I took from the airport here, I can take a picture of that immediately, and at the end of the month, I don't have the overhead of going and trying to look through all of these different folders to try and figure out where I put my receipts and my wallet, taking a whole bunch of pictures, aggregating all of it together. At the end of this, I'm just going to click submit, and I won't have any other time that it's going to take me to submit my report.
But Appian did that for us. We didn't build anything special. It's inherent to the tool. Let's actually talk about time reporting. So with time reporting, Prior to Appian, we were actually using QuickBooks Online. The prior system was kind of hard to adapt to. It didn't let me filter out by product codes. A lot of mistakes were made. It was very ineffective, and validations were completely manual. So we actually built our own timekeeping system. We replaced QuickBooks Online. We now show tied to the record of the individual and tying that to the individual opportunity record, only things that were active for them. It may sound obvious, but we couldn't do that with the prior tools. It made it easier. It made it more accurate for us. But we were also able to eliminate 95% of our errors simply by building the system and modeling it the way that we do business. But of course, if you build a timesheet system, well, you're going to want to build a way to actually do invoices.
Yeah, so the downstream effect of that is at the beginning of every month, it was our program managers just bane of their existence when the beginning of the day starts and it's just a couple of hours of just frantically going back and trying to do a bunch of manual validations on everybody's timesheets that nobody would ever get perfect. I don't care how long you've been working at Macedon and doing it. But now, all of that information flows from the time reports that they've been filling out throughout the month, gets rolled up into our daily finances, and we don't have to go through and manage a bunch of different spreadsheets to keep everything in. Here's what I was expecting to have for my invoice at the end of this month versus what it actually is. Here's keeping in sync with finances. Here's updating a different spreadsheet to try and make sure that all of our burn downs for our contract are correct. Now, all of that happens streamlined because of the fact that we're capturing that data and can use it from Appian.
Yeah, but we didn't stop there. We kept going. We continued. We built small solutions as small as dealing with assets to employee wellness, all the way to building a comprehensive financial management system for the team. Now, keep in mind, we didn't just build stovepipes, right? We didn't build things that didn't integrate. We built very cohesive systems that were built using a strong record model.
And really the downstream effect of that is that all of our consultants don't have to worry about a ton of that overhead, and they can focus really on delivering valued work, which is what they want to be doing anyway. And that really shows when last year we got highlighted with with Appian as the #1 small business to work for. With them, it was the #1 large business. And I really believe that that's because of the fact that our company and our employees are allowed to focus on the work that they want to do rather than having to sit there and just work with periphery.
Yeah, so Austin's actually sitting in the crowd, I want to embarrass Austin as well. Let's actually talk a little bit more about employee engagement. So this may sound silly, but this is actually quite important. There's many components that make us a top company to work for. Let me give you a little bit of the secret sauce. It's food. We actually allow employees to vote on what we provide because we provide food throughout the day, but it's point-based. So our shopping list actually comes straight out of Appian. One of the other things that we found is you're able to earn more points, our Stockhawk points, and they're quite interesting. And we also found that we created an accidental black market of Stockhawk points for people that don't reside in our office. Once they decided to game the system and ordered butter. And so the most voted on thing was butter. So to prove a point that we followed the system, we bought this giant 15-pound block of butter. That was the last time they did that.
I'm not going to say that, the PO accepts bribes, but all of the PO's snacks are in stock.
So this is actually production data here today, and the team is quite well fed.
But then we hit the magic 100 employee threshold, and most of the processes that we had been working on in the past were all about our back of office. But when we were smaller, and we were still scaling, the CEO could look around and try and identify fires just kind of from instincts, looking around the room. But when you're getting up to 60 projects that we're all running at the same time, we needed to make sure that we have a repeatable system for that. And so really it was trying to figure out how we are going to automate a lot of these systems to keep things working smoothly as we scale.
So up until this point, we were solely focused on back office support. So last year, Macedon took on a massive effort to take our PMO functions and bring it into Appian. Now, for now, the PMO functions, they're supporting progress reports, risk management, fire prevention. This is a game changer when you start to hit the scale where we are today. And though our programs use common written procedures and common templates, we didn't have a good way to enforce. We didn't have a good way to monitor and control when we started to scale up. Well, now risks come to the surface. Now we can look at the entire portfolio at a glance and know where does each program stand. Every morning we go in, we look at our news feed, and we could see where are the new risks, so that we can focus on those before they turn into issues.
And that rolls up right into some really nice reporting. So if we have a consultant who is only been working with Appian for a short time, but identifies a technical risk while everybody that is in management is at Appian World, they can log something and it'll come right up to our dashboards immediately. So even though we're not necessarily present at the moment, we can still really easily get a lot of feedback on what's going on with the company, and we can figure out where we need to focus our attention effectively.
So let's talk about how we deal with project opportunities. When Macedon was much smaller, opportunities were tracked in Excel, or worse, they were tracked in Austin's head. We knew we didn't need anything as heavy as Salesforce. That was a little too big. We wanted to really model the way that we did opportunity tracking based on the way that we do business, not the way some ERP says I have to do business. So again, leveraging Appian as the foundation, we built a comprehensive opportunities tracking system within Appian. And of course, if you build opportunities, you're going to want to build a way to onboard those opportunities when they go live.
But this is something that we continue to do. So like I mentioned before, all of our projects that we run internally, we run exactly like we would run a project for a client. So we have 2-week sprints, we have a backlog that gets groomed by the product owner. And right now, I think it's a little bit more than that since we started or made this presentation, but it's a little over 700 things that we're getting in the backlog. And so we can go through and groom our backlog every couple of weeks, pull items into our development sprints, and continue to enhance and improve and build out different parts of the system as we need to.
Yeah, but again, to the Stockhawk points, it's totally bribable, since he does run that system, to bribe Colin with Stockhawk points.
Can't confirm nor deny.
Yeah, okay. So look at Macedon Technologies. We've been around for 10 years. We double in size every 2 to 3 years. We are solely focused on Appian-centric solutions. Our company has scaled, and what we've done is we've done it in a smart way, but we've done it with the Appian Platform. And as we continue to scale, we're going to continue to build onto that platform to allow us to have growth. So thank you very much. Appreciate everybody being here today.